The sun had already set behind the far hills, and the land lay quiet under a deep blue sky. Eli Harper stood on the porch of his small farmhouse, his hands resting on the wooden rail as he watched the stars begin to appear. The air smelled of rain and dust, and the soft rustle of corn filled the silence. Eli was a single father. He lived alone on this farm with his 8-year-old daughter, Mia. Life was simple: wake up before sunrise, work the fields, fix broken fences, and make sure Mia did her schoolwork. Every evening, they would sit by the fireplace, eat whatever they had, and talk about her dreams. But tonight felt different. The air was heavy, almost electric. Even the animals were restless. The horses kicked in their stalls and the dog barked at nothing. Eli frowned, pulling his old jacket closer around his shoulders. He didn't believe in superstitions, but years of working the land had taught him one thing: when nature goes silent, something's coming. Inside the house, Mia was coloring pictures on the table. "Daddy," she said without looking up, "why is the wind making that noise?" Eli forced a smile. "Just a storm, pumpkin. You finish your picture and I'll go check the barn." He took his flashlight and stepped into the night. The moon hid behind thick clouds and the field stretched out like a dark ocean. The wind was cold now, cutting through his jacket. He checked the animals. The cows were huddled together, eyes wide and nervous. Something had them spooked. Then it happened. A bright green light flashed across the sky, so fast and so close that Eli ducked instinctively. The light tore through the darkness like a burning spear, leaving a trail of smoke and sparks. A second later, a boom echoed across the valley. The ground trembled under his boots. Eli's heart pounded. "What in God's name?" he muttered. He looked toward the northern edge of his land. Smoke was rising from the far cornfield, glowing faintly green. He turned and ran back to the porch. Mia was standing there wide-eyed and holding her teddy bear. "Daddy, the sky fell," she cried. "I saw," he said, grabbing his rifle from behind the door. "Stay inside, Mia. Don't come out until I say. But, no buts. Lock the door. You hear me?" She nodded quickly, tears forming in her eyes. Eli gave her one last look and then ran toward the smoke. The field was uneven, and his boots sank into the damp soil. The air smelled of burnt metal and ozone. As he got closer, he could see a crater, and small but deep, with dirt still steaming. The flashlight beam shook in his hand as he aimed it down. At first, he thought it was just wreckage, maybe a meteor, maybe a plane part. But then he saw it. Inside the shallow pit was a metal pod, round like an egg, but with glowing lines that pulsed faintly, as if alive. Eli's breath caught in his throat. The pod was cracked open, and strange symbols were carved all over its surface. He stepped closer, cautious but curious. The light from his flashlight reflected off something inside the pod. Something moving. Eli crouched down. Inside were two small shapes tangled together, shaking. His first thought was that they were children, maybe survivors of a crash. But as he lifted the light higher, his mouth went dry. Their skin was pale blue and smooth like glass. Their eyes, large and black, blinked slowly. Their wrists and ankles were bound with strange silver cords that glowed faintly red, almost burning their skin. They weren't human. Eli stumbled back, his heart thundering in his chest. He pointed the rifle out of instinct, but his hands were trembling. The creatures made no move. One of them let out a soft whimper, not in any language he knew, but the sound was full of pain. For a long moment, Eli stood frozen. Every part of him screamed to run back to the house, to call someone, anyone. But he couldn't move. The sight of those small, tied-up bodies, something about it broke through his fear. The smaller one opened its eyes again and looked right at him, not with anger, not with threat, but with fear. Real, human-like fear. It reached out a trembling hand toward him. Eli lowered the rifle slowly. "What are you?" he whispered. The creature didn't answer. It just looked at him. Tears, or something like tears, sliding down its blue cheeks. Eli took a deep breath and stepped closer. The smell of the crash was thick, like burnt iron and ozone. He could hear the faint hum of the pod still working or maybe dying. He couldn't leave them there. Whatever they were, whoever had done this to them, they didn't deserve to be left tied up and alone in the cold. He bent down, reached for the cords, and found them hot to the touch. The creatures flinched. "Easy," he said softly, as if speaking to frightened animals. "I'm not going to hurt you." The cords snapped when he pulled hard enough. The red glow faded, and the creatures went limp, breathing weakly. Eli carefully lifted them, surprised at how light they were and like carrying two frail birds. He looked back at the dark field. No sirens, no lights, just silence and the wind. As he carried them toward the house, he had only one thought repeating. In his mind, what have I just brought into my home? The night had grown colder by the time Eli reached his farmhouse. The two strange children, if they were children, lay limp in his arms. Their faint blue skin glimmered under the porch light, and their strange silver cuffs still hummed with weak energy. Eli's heart pounded as he kicked the door open. Mia ran out from behind the kitchen table, her eyes wide. "Daddy, what happened? What's that?" "Back inside," Eli said quickly, pushing the door shut behind him. He set the creatures gently on the old couch and locked the door tight. "Stay away from them, Mia. Don't touch." She froze, clutching her teddy bear, watching in silence as Eli knelt beside the glowing beings. One was slightly taller, maybe the size of a 10-year-old. The other smaller, fragile and barely breathing. Eli grabbed a towel, wet it, and wiped the dirt and ash from their faces. The smaller one stirred, making a soft sound like a sigh mixed with music. It didn't sound human, but it wasn't frightening, it was sad. "They're kids," Mia whispered finally. "Aren't they?" Eli looked at her. "I don't know what they are, sweetheart." He touched one of the silver cuffs on their wrists. It was hot and heavy, fused into the skin. When he tried to pull it, a small spark shocked him. He cursed under his breath. The marks around the cuffs were red and burned, as if someone had tied them there for a long time. "They've been hurt," he said quietly. Mia stepped closer, curiosity stronger than fear. "Can they talk?" "I don't think so." But before he could say more, a whisper filled the room, soft and echoing, like a voice inside his mind. It wasn't from Mia. It wasn't from his own mouth. "Please, help us." Eli jerked his head up. "Did you hear that?" Mia nodded slowly, eyes wide. "Yes." The taller alien opened its eyes, black as night, but shining with emotion. It looked straight at Eli, and again, the voice came, clearer now. "We ran away. They tied us, hurt us." Eli's breath caught. "Who did this to you?" The child's lips moved, but no sound came. Only another voice in his head. "Hunters, bad ones. They take and sell us. We escaped. Crash. Pain." Eli's stomach twisted. He had no idea how to process what he was hearing. These weren't just creatures from the sky, they were prisoners, victims. Someone had captured them. He fetched his old first aid kit from the shelf. His hands shook as he dabbed ointment on their burned wrists. The ointment hissed when it touched their skin, but quickly cooled and their breathing grew steadier. "They're scared," Mia said softly. "Like when I get nightmares." Eli nodded. "Yeah, just like that." He covered them with a blanket and sat down, staring at them. The hum from their cuffs faded, leaving only the quiet sound of their breathing. For the first time since the crash, the house felt calm, but Eli's mind was racing. What if someone came looking for them? The crash had been bright. Someone must have seen it. The army, the police, or worse, whoever had done this. He stood, walked to the window, and peeked through the curtain. The fields were silent, but the air still glowed faintly green where the pod had fallen. He knew what he should do. He should call the authorities, report what he'd found. But deep down, he knew what would happen next. They would take these beings away, lock them up, study them, maybe destroy them. He looked back at the couch. The smaller one, the weaker one, had curled against the other, trembling even in sleep. They looked innocent, like lost children. "Daddy?" Mia's voice was small, Yes, Pumpkin. If someone hurt them, she whispered, you won't let them come back, right? Eli looked at her, his little girl, the only person he had left in the world, and then at the alien twins. No, he said firmly. I won't let anyone hurt them again. He turned off the light and went to the back door. Outside, he found the old storm cellar, the one he used to store tools. He cleaned it out quickly, spread some blankets, and carried the alien twins down there one by one. The cellar was cold but safe. Hidden. You'll be okay here, Eli said softly. He didn't know if they understood him, but one of them reached out and touched his hand. The touch was warm, almost human. When he went back upstairs, Mia was waiting at the top of the steps. Are they sleeping? Yeah, Eli said, rubbing his tired eyes. We'll keep them safe tonight. He closed the cellar door and sat by the fireplace. The crackling flames threw shadows across the room. He could still feel the faint echo of that voice in his head. Thank you, Eli. His name. They knew his name. Eli froze, staring into the fire. He didn't tell Mia what he'd heard. Instead, he whispered to himself, what have I brought into my home? And how do they know me? Outside, far across the fields, a dark shape moved in the night. Slow, mechanical, searching. The green light in the sky flickered again. Something or someone was already looking for the twins, and they were getting closer. Eli did not sleep that night. He sat in his old wooden chair, staring into the dying fire while the wind whistled through the cracks in the window. Every creak of the house made him tense. Every shadow made his heart beat faster. Down in the storm cellar, the alien twins slept under a pile of old blankets. He had checked on them again and again, making sure they were still breathing, still alive. Their glowing cuffs had gone dim, but faint blue light still pulsed under their skin, as if their hearts beat with light instead of blood. He couldn't stop thinking about the voice he'd heard in his head. Thank you, Eli. It had been clear, real. But how did they know his name? He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. Maybe he was losing it. Maybe he'd imagined it all. But when he looked toward the cellar door, a soft hum vibrated through the floor, low and steady like a heartbeat under the earth. Eli stood and went to the window. The sky outside was darker than usual, the stars hidden behind thick clouds. In the far distance, beyond the cornfields, he saw faint red lights sweeping slowly across the land, like searchlights. Someone was out there. He gritted his teeth. Not tonight, he muttered. When morning came, the world looked normal again. The sun rose golden and warm. Birds sang. Mia came down the stairs, rubbing her eyes, holding her teddy bear. Daddy, are they okay? She asked. Eli poured her a glass of milk and forced a small smile. They're fine. Sleeping still. Mia climbed onto the chair beside him. Do you think they have a family? That question hit him harder than he expected. He looked out the window at the endless fields. I think they do, he said finally. Somewhere far away. Mia nodded, then whispered, I hope they're not scared anymore. Eli didn't answer. He finished his coffee and went to check on the cellar. When he opened the door, he found both twins awake, sitting close together. The taller one looked at him immediately. Morning, Eli said carefully, unsure if they understood. They didn't speak, but he felt a faint buzz in his mind again. Words without sound. You helped us. We are sorry. We didn't mean to crash. Eli crouched down beside them. You can talk to me. In my head? The taller twin nodded slowly. We speak with thought. Safer this way. He pointed to the metal cuffs on their wrists. Those things, who did that to you? The smaller twin flinched. The older one looked down, sadness filling its black eyes. Hunters. We escaped. They will come. Eli's jaw tightened. They already are. He stood and paced the cellar. He didn't understand all this, but one thing was clear. The twins were running from someone, and those people were getting close. Can they find you? He asked. Yes, came the reply. If we use too much energy. They will see. We must hide, please. Eli looked at the cellar door above them. He thought of Mia asleep in her room. He thought of the strange lights outside last night. He was just a farmer. A single father trying to keep his daughter safe. He didn't ask for any of this, but now, he couldn't just turn them away. Not after seeing the fear in their eyes. He took a deep breath. All right, he said finally. You stay here. Don't make noise. Don't use any of your energy. I'll take care of things up here. The taller twin tilted its head. Why help us, Eli? He paused at the stairs. Because once I needed help too, and nobody came. By noon, Eli was out in the fields pretending to work, but his eyes kept scanning the road. Around lunchtime, he saw it. 3 black trucks moving slowly along the dirt path, stopping every few minutes. Men in dark uniforms stepped out, holding strange devices that blinked with green lights. Eli's stomach turned cold. They weren't farmers. They weren't police. He ran to the house, locked the doors, and called the sheriff's office. The line was full of static. He tried again, nothing. Then through the crackling static, a new voice came through the radio. Return them, Eli Harper. He froze. The voice wasn't human, it was flat, metallic, and too calm. You have something that belongs to us. Return the subjects, or we take the girl. The radio went dead. Eli stared at it, his hands shaking. For a moment he couldn't breathe. Then he turned toward the stairs where Mia was sitting, holding her teddy bear and watching him with wide eyes. Daddy? Who was that? He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Nobody, sweetheart, just nobody. He turned off the radio, grabbed his rifle, and looked toward the cellar door. He had made his choice. No matter who those men were, no matter what they wanted. He wasn't giving the twins up. Not now. Not ever. By the time the sun dipped behind the hills, the air around Eli's farm no longer felt calm. It was too still. The wind had stopped. Even the crickets had gone silent. Eli stood on his porch with a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. His eyes moved from the road to the tree line again and again. He could feel it. Someone was watching. Down in the storm cellar, the alien twins were quiet, hidden beneath blankets. He had left food and water for them, but they barely touched it. The smaller one, Lyra, was weak again, her skin fading from bright blue to dull gray. The older one, Tian, sat beside her, whispering soft sounds that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. Eli had tried to act normal for Mia's sake, but she wasn't fooled. Daddy, she said at dinner, her voice small. Why do you keep looking outside? He smiled weakly. Just making sure the storm doesn't blow the roof off. She frowned. But there's no storm. He didn't answer. He couldn't tell her that he'd seen black trucks parked a mile away, their engines humming quietly, lights off. He couldn't tell her that his radio had spoken to him again in that same cold metal voice, repeating the same threat. Return them. Or lose her. It was close to midnight when he heard it, the sound of tires crunching over gravel. Eli's heart jumped. He turned off the lamp and peered through the curtain. Headlights cut through the darkness, 3 sets of them moving slowly up the dirt road. When the vehicle stopped, 3 men stepped out, all dressed in black suits and heavy boots. No badges, no friendly smiles. Their faces looked carved from stone. One of them, tall and broad-shouldered, carried a silver case that pulsed with faint light. Another held a small scanner, sweeping it side to side. The third man looked straight at the house and smiled. A slow, knowing grin that made Eli's skin crawl. A knock echoed through the quiet night. 3 hard knocks. Eli set his rifle against the wall and opened the door halfway. Evening. Something I can do for you? The tallest man stepped forward. We're from the Meteor Safety Division, sir. You might have seen a light fall over this area last night. We're just here to check for hazardous debris. Eli studied him. His tone was polite, but his eyes were sharp and cold. Meteor, huh? Didn't see much. Just a flash. Probably hit farther north. The man smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. We have reason to believe it landed somewhere on your property. Mind if we take a quick look around? Yes, Eli said flatly. I mind a lot. This is private land. The man's smile faded. He exchanged a glance with the one holding the scanner. The device beeped faintly, then flashed red. Sir, the man said slowly. You sure you haven't noticed anything unusual? Eli crossed his arms. You mean besides strangers knocking on my door in the middle of the night? For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then the man nodded once. We'll be back, he said. Be sure to report anything. Strange. They turned and walked back to their trucks. But before getting in, the last man, the one with the silver case, looked back and said quietly, You can't hide them forever, Mr. Harper. Eli froze. His throat went dry. He hadn't told them his name. When the trucks finally disappeared down the road, Eli rushed to the cellar. Tin and Lyra were both awake, eyes wide. They found us, Tin said in his mind, his telepathic voice trembling. They can sense our energy. Eli knelt beside them. Then we'll stop them from coming back. I'll find a way. You can't fight them, Tin said. They are not human soldiers. They hunt across worlds, Eli's jaw tightened. Maybe not, but this is my land, my home, and I protect what's mine. The twins looked at him, their faces lit by the dim glow from their skin. For a second, Eli thought he saw something new in their eyes. Respect. Maybe even trust. Upstairs, Mia was sleeping on the couch. Eli sat beside her and loaded his rifle one shell at a time. The sound of metal clicking into place filled the room. He remembered the voice from the radio, the way it had said her name like a promise. No one was taking his daughter. No one was taking those kids either. He checked the window again. A faint red light blinked in the distance. The hunters hadn't gone far. They were waiting for sunrise. As he sat in the dark, a whisper filled his head, Tin's voice again. They will come tomorrow. Be ready, Eli didn't reply. He stared out at the empty fields and said quietly to himself, Then they'll wish they never came to my farm. Outside, the corn swayed under the cold wind, and somewhere beyond the trees, something mechanical moved closer, slow, patient, and deadly. The hunt had begun. Morning came heavy and gray. The fog rolled over the fields like a slow-moving sea, swallowing the fences and barn until only the house stood clear. Eli hadn't slept at all. His eyes were red, his coffee untouched. He kept the rifle on the table, loaded and ready. Mia sat near the window, quietly drawing. She hadn't said a word since last night. The men in black had scared her. Eli could see it in the way she kept glancing at the road, waiting for something to appear. Down in the cellar, the twins were restless. Eli could feel their fear even when he wasn't near them. It came like a soft pressure in his head, a mix of whispers and images, flashes of fire, chains, and bright metal rooms. They were memories, not words. He didn't understand how their minds worked, but one thing was clear. They were running from monsters. Eli sighed and went downstairs to check on them. The cellar was dim, but he didn't need light. Their bodies gave off a soft blue glow that shimmered against the walls. Tin looked up when he entered. They are near again, the voice said in Eli's mind. We must leave before night comes. Eli crossed his arms. Leave, go where? You can't even walk far without glowing like a lantern. They'll find you in an hour. Tin's black eyes narrowed. If we stay, they will find you too. They will take your daughter. The words hit Eli like a knife. He clenched his fists. Don't you dare talk about her. Lyra stirred weakly beside her brother. Her small voice entered his mind, softer, trembling. We do not wish harm, but the hunters know your name now. They marked you. You must decide, hide, fight, or run. Eli turned away, pacing. Hide, there's nowhere they can't find. Run, with what? I've got 1 truck and a half tank of gas. Fight? He gave a bitter laugh. I'm one man with a shotgun. That's not a fight. That's suicide. Tin lowered his head. You saved us. We will save you. Eli frowned. Save me? How? The twins looked at each other. Then Tyne reached toward the cracked metal device they had salvaged from the crash pod, a small round core that pulsed with green light. Our ship's heart still lives, he said. If we can reach it, we can call home. But we need power, energy to awaken it. The hunters jammed our signal. They will come when it rises. Eli's mind raced. If they could actually contact someone friendly, maybe help would come. But bringing that core to life would also act like a beacon. The hunters would know exactly where they were. He rubbed his forehead. You're asking me to risk everything, my daughter, my home, just to send a signal? Tin looked straight at him. Not just a signal. A call for truth. For safety. For home, Lyra whispered. Please, Eli. He stared at them for a long moment. Then he exhaled slowly. All right. If we're doing this, we do it my way. At night, when they can't see the glow. We'll take the tractor out back and pull the core up from the crash site. Tin nodded once. We will help. We owe you life. That evening, Eli prepared the truck. He packed blankets, food, a few tools, and loaded the rifle. He kept checking over his shoulder, expecting to see headlights on the road. But there was only fog and silence. When the sun finally sank, he woke Mia. Pumpkin, we're going for a drive. Just for a bit, she blinked sleepily. Are we running away? He froze. What makes you say that? She hugged her teddy bear tight. Because that's what people do when bad men come. He couldn't lie to her. "Yeah," he said softly. "We're running a little." She didn't cry. She just nodded bravely like her mother used to. They went outside quietly. Eli carried Lyra in his arms, her body light as air. Tin followed, his glow hidden under an old blanket. The night was silent except for the soft crunch of gravel under their boots. When they reached the field, Eli saw the crash site again, the broken pod half buried in the earth, faintly glowing. The air still smelled of burnt metal. Tin stepped forward and touched the ship's heart. It came alive instantly, humming with power. A beam of blue light shot upward for a second, then faded. Eli felt the ground vibrate. "What did you do?" "We called them," Tin said. "Our people will hear." Eli turned toward the horizon and his stomach dropped. Far away, 3 red lights flickered through the fog, moving fast toward them. Mia gasped. "Daddy, they're coming." Eli gripped his rifle tight. "Then we hold them off." He looked at the twins. "You two wanted to make a call? Fine, but we finish this together." Tin's eyes glowed brighter. "Together," he said. And as the sound of engines grew louder, Eli felt something strange. Not fear this time, but strength. He wasn't just a farmer anymore. He was a father, a protector, and maybe, just maybe, humanity's first ally in a war he didn't yet understand. The first engine roared through the fog just after midnight. Eli heard it before he saw it. A low, steady hum that rattled the window glass. He looked up from loading his rifle, heart pounding. Out in the fields, 3 black shapes rolled toward the farmhouse, their red lights cutting through the mist like eyes of demons. Mia was sitting on the couch, hugging her teddy bear. "Daddy," she whispered, "they're here." Eli nodded. "Stay down, sweetheart. You don't move, you hear me?" She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. He wanted to tell her everything would be fine, but he couldn't lie. Not tonight. Down in the cellar, the twins glowed brighter now. The signal core they had reactivated pulsed with steady blue light, and a faint hum filled the floorboards. It was alive. Eli could feel it deep in his bones. He ran down to them. "They're coming," he said breathlessly. "We need to be ready." Tin stood, eyes glowing white now instead of black. "They found the signal. We warned you, but we will not let them take us again." Eli's hands trembled as he reloaded the rifle. "Then we fight." Lyra, the smaller twin, weak but determined, looked up at him. "You will get hurt." Eli gave a small, tired smile. "Probably. But they're not taking my daughter. And they're not taking you." Outside, 3 black trucks surrounded the farmhouse. Doors opened, and 6 men stepped out dressed in armor that shimmered faintly under the moonlight. They moved like machines, silent, perfect, heartless. One of them raised a strange device, and a high-pitched buzz filled the air. The power in the house flickered, then died. The whole farm went dark. Eli peeked through the window. "They're cutting power," he muttered. "Trying to blind us." He stepped onto the porch, shotgun in hand, the fog curling around his boots. "You're trespassing," he shouted. "Leave my land now." The leader stepped forward. His voice was calm, too calm. "Eli Harper, you have something that doesn't belong to you." Eli cocked the gun. Neither do the men sneaking onto private property at midnight. The man sighed and held up a small remote. "Last chance." Eli didn't move. The man pressed the button. A bright red beam shot from one of the trucks, hitting the side of the barn. The whole structure exploded into flames. The heat slammed into Eli like a wave. He dove behind the porch railing and fired back. The blast echoed through the night. One of the armored men stumbled but didn't fall. His armor sparked but held. Inside the house, Mia screamed. Eli ran back inside, grabbed her, and pulled her under the table. "Stay here," he shouted. "Don't move until I come back." She clutched his arm. "Daddy, don't go." "I have to," he said, eyes fierce. "I have to protect you." He ran back to the cellar door and yanked it open. "Now would be a great time for a miracle," he said to the twins. Tin's eyes blazed with light. "Then you shall have one." He lifted his hands and the air around him crackled. The walls shook. Light burst from his palms, spreading like a wave through the ground. Outside, the men froze as their scanners shorted out. Their suits flickered and sparks flew. One shouted something into his radio. Then all 3 trucks went dead. Engines silenced. "Lights out." Eli stared at Tin. "What did you just do?" Tin's voice echoed inside his mind. We fight with the light they tried to steal. Lyra stood beside her brother, her small hands glowing. Together, they stepped out of the cellar. The floorboards vibrated beneath them and strange symbols shimmered faintly in the air. When they reached the porch, Eli followed. The twins stood side by side in the fog, their light cutting through the darkness. The hunters aimed their weapons, but before they could fire, Tin raised his hand. A shockwave burst from the twins, sweeping across the field. It tore through metal and armor like paper. The men were thrown backward, their weapons ripped from their hands. Eli watched, speechless. His farm, his simple, quiet home, had become a battlefield of fire and light. Mia peeked from the doorway, eyes wide in awe. "They're saving us," she whispered. Lyra turned, smiling faintly. "No, little one. You saved us first." As the last of the hunters fled into the fog, their vehicles smoking and broken, the night grew still again. Only the flames from the barn burned, lighting the sky in orange. Eli dropped his rifle, breathing hard. "Is it over?" he asked. Tin looked up at the stars. "No, the hunters will return, but now, they are not the only ones who can see us." Lyra touched the glowing stone at her neck. "The guardians will come soon." Eli frowned. "Guardians?" She nodded. "Our people." "The good ones." For the first time in a long while, Eli felt something strange stirring in his chest. Not fear, but hope. He looked at his daughter, who smiled through her tears, and then at the twins glowing softly in the smoky dawn light. Maybe he wasn't just a farmer anymore. Maybe he was part of something much bigger than he could ever imagine. Dawn came slow and quiet. The fog lifted from the fields, revealing the damage the night had left behind. Eli's barn was half burned. The tractor flipped on its side, and the ground was scorched where the hunters' machines had fallen. The air smelled like smoke and metal. Eli stood on the porch, his clothes torn and covered in ash. The shotgun hung loosely in his hand, but his eyes were fixed on the sky. For the first time in hours, it was calm, too calm. Behind him, Mia stepped out carefully, wrapped in her old blanket. She looked small and sleepy, her teddy bear pressed tight against her chest. "Daddy," she whispered, "are they gone?" Eli nodded slowly. "Yeah, Pumpkin. They're gone." But his voice held a weight that said he knew it wasn't over. Down by the old field, the twins stood side by side in the soft morning light. Their blue glow had dimmed now, their strength clearly fading. Still, they looked peaceful, like they finally belonged under the open sky. Eli walked to them, his boots crunching on the blackened dirt. "You both okay?" Tin gave a small nod. "We are alive. Thanks to you." "You're welcome," Eli said quietly. "But I've got a feeling your friends aren't done with this place." Lyra tilted her head, eyes soft. "The hunters will not return." "The guardians are coming," Eli frowned. "Guardians?" Tin raised his gaze to the horizon. "They protect our kind. They answer our signal. They will take us home." Eli followed his eyes, and that's when he saw it. A streak of gold cut across the sky, slow and silent. It wasn't like the hunters' dark ships. This one shimmered bright and graceful, like sunlight turned to metal. As it descended, the clouds parted and a faint hum filled the air. Mia gasped. "It's so pretty." The ship hovered just above the ground at the edge of the cornfield. A beam of soft white light poured down, gentle and warm. From inside the light stepped tall figures dressed in silver, their faces kind but unreadable. They moved without sound, like walking through air. Eli stood in front of the twins, shielding them out of habit. "Who are you?" he asked. One of the beings bowed slightly. "We are the Guardians. You have shown courage, human Eli Harper. You saved our children." Eli blinked. "Children?" The Guardian's gaze softened. "Yes. Lyra and Tin are the royal twins of our homeworld, heirs to the first light. The hunters stole them to sell across galaxies. You gave them back their freedom." Eli looked at the twins, speechless. "Royalty. On his farm. Well," he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "That explains a lot." Lyra smiled faintly, stepping forward. "You treated us like your own. We will never forget." Eli's throat tightened. "You don't have to thank me. I just did what anyone would." Tin shook his head. "No, Eli, not anyone. Many would have turned us in. You protected us even when it put your family in danger. That is what makes you different." Eli didn't know what to say. He looked down at Mia, who was staring up at the aliens with wide, shining eyes. She wasn't afraid anymore. She looked proud. Are you leaving now? She asked quietly. Lyra knelt to her height, smiling. Yes, little one. Our mother waits for us beyond the stars. But we will never forget you. She reached into the glowing band on her wrist and pulled out a small crystal, warm and bright like a tiny heart. She placed it gently in Mia's hand. If you ever need us, hold this to the sky. It will find us. Mia's eyes filled with tears. Will you come back? Lyra's voice was soft in her mind. Maybe not soon. But when you look at the stars, you'll see us there. The guardians extended their hands toward the twins. Tin turned to Eli one last time. Take care of your world, Eli Harper. You fight with heart. Someday that will save more than you know. Eli nodded, his voice rough. You two take care of yours. The twins stepped into the beam of light. The air shimmered around them and the ship began to rise, slow and graceful. Mia ran forward and waved, shouting, Goodbye! Don't forget us! For a moment, Lyra looked down and waved back. Then the ship vanished into the golden clouds, leaving only silence and a faint shimmer in the air. Eli stood there for a long time, staring at the empty sky. The wind moved softly through the burnt field. It was over. He finally turned to his daughter. She was holding the glowing crystal tight against her chest. Daddy, she said, smiling through tears. I think we made friends from the stars. Eli smiled, weary but proud. Yeah, he said quietly, looking up at the dawn. And I think the stars made friends with us. He picked her up, holding her close as the first sunlight broke over the horizon. The light touched the ruined barn, the fields, the house, and the small crystal glowing in Mia's hand. It shined brighter than before and far above. Unseen by human eyes, two distant lights blinked in answer.